Savinho to Tottenham is very much on, according to monster bomber journalist Fabrizio Romano. Ornstein, the other validation, the vindication of the story, has also come out and spoken of the story positively. At the same time, Eberechi Eze is still very much of interest to Tottenham Hotspur, also from Fabrizio Romano. Guys, this could be and should be a massive week in the lives of Tottenham Hotspur fans. The panic, the meltdown, the negativity that has ensued for the majority of the summer. Are most people starting to see now that sometimes patience is a virtue? It's not done. It's not done. And there's still plenty of reasons to think that it might go sideways. Not least of which, Tottenham have apparently put in an early bid of 50 million euros. We'll come to that in a second, which has been rejected by Manchester City. They want more. They also apparently don't necessarily want to sell, but are open to losing the player if the player wants the move. The positive spin there is that he does. Maybe because he's worried about how many minutes he will get this season. When you look at the crowded squad that Manchester City have, another potential fly in the ointment, though, could be that Everton have just had the here we go for Jack Grealish, joining them on loan. One less winger even, for Manchester City superstar Savinho to concern himself with as competition. Will anything change? Will Pep Guardiola end up wasting our time, drawing us into a drawn-out transfer strategy, all for it to fall over at the last minute? Remember, there's not a great relationship between the manager of Manchester City and the owner of Tottenham Hotspur, going back to the Harry Kane saga and actually before that as well. So it's certainly not done, but things are looking very positive with the Savinho deal. With the Eze deal, well, we'll come to that in a second, but if there's a chance, and we've been talking about this for the last few days, there has been some murmurings and some rumblings that I've heard from around the training ground at breakfast and lunches and those sorts of things, where people have been talking about Eze. Big players at Tottenham, big people at Tottenham, the hierarchy, the top brass have been having his name on their lips. What about Harvey Elliott? The hijack might be on. Could we see an entire new look team? Not for the PSG game on Wednesday. The squad for that has already been announced and sent off. And so we are where we are with that. But by Burnley, is there a chance that we could have two, or at least one, maybe two, and Dreamworld 3 new players into the squad? What will that look like? Well, I'll show you in a second. Guys, before we get into it, smash the like button for me if you are a happier boy this morning, or a lady, happier lady too, if you think this one's going to get done. Let me know in the comment section whether you rate Savinho, whether you think he's worth the money that we're going to end up having to pay for him. Has Daniel Levy had a lobotomy because of his apparent willingness to set a price and an asking price in initial conversations? This was last night's story that made Manchester City sit up and take notice. That's not usually Daniel Levy's foreplay, is it? But that is the way the story has gone, although apparently this morning the first bid has been rejected. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Every day I bring to you whatever's in the news. I'll try and collate the information and give you my little salt and pepper on it. And also do squeeze the notification bell as well. Guys, if you do prefer this stuff via Spotify, you can watch it on Spotify. But if you want to listen to it on Apple or on Amazon and all those different podcasts, then the links are in the description. And actually, I try to get this uploaded onto those things first, just before it comes onto YouTube. So it's worth a follow. And if you don't mind, a 5-star rating would do the channel wonders on those platforms. Right, let's have a look at it, guys, shall we? Let's start with this particular story out of this is from Rich Jolly this morning, saying Manchester City want to keep Savinho and believe he is worth much more than the mooted 50 million euro price. The winger is also yet to say he wants to leave the Etihad Stadium. However, let me go back and change across this one here. Tottenham are in talks with Manchester City to sign Savinho. City not actively wanting to sell. 50 million euro deal being discussed. This is from David Ornstein. When he's talking, you know it's real and it's close. We have some more stuff out regarding from All Things THFC that are collating all these stories for us. Good shout out to them. City do not want to sell Savinho, but Spurs have hinted towards paying a price which City cannot ignore. Savinho has also given his okay to the deal. This is from FPL Main Road, who have 73,000 followers as well. So here's the next story, guys, on this one. More on the Savinho story. This was 43 minutes ago. First proposal has already been sent by Spurs worth 50 million euros, and Man City want more. Negotiations ongoing with City, open to selling as Savio's keen on the move, but only at their conditions. Deal is absolutely on. I mean, it's wonderful stuff. It really is. I have been saying to everybody, like, you have to keep your powder dry. There's no point in getting upset and going after the negativity. It's a disgrace. The club's a disgrace, yada, yada, when there's still time on the clock. Wait until September 1st. Otherwise, you can have egg on your face like I did with the Morgan Gibbs White thing. But ultimately, you know, there's still time on the clock. Yes, you could make the argument they should have been more prepared, but the game doesn't work like that. Football negotiations rarely do. The vast majority of football negotiations and transfers take place in the final days and weeks of both the January and the summer window, because time expiration has its own value. It is a commodity in itself. And so that scarcity allows people with leverage to take advantage of people who don't have it. So it's an interesting story that's come out of nowhere, really. Although, having said that, a few days ago, I did actually bring the story to your attention. I gave it a no chance initially because I didn't see how it made any sense. The guy's 21, 22 years old and has done so well in his career, and that Manchester City fans are very, very much, you know, were at the time saying it's laughable. And then obviously over what's happened in the last 12 hours, that that they're saying that they really don't want it and that I can't understand why Tottenham Hotspur will be allowed to take them. Does Savinho think that his minutes are limited because of Oscar Bob? Don't forget, you've got Phil Foden who can play out there. Mamouche could even play out there on the right or the left if he needed to, even though he's more of a striker. And of course, you have, you know, the likes of Jack Grealish that's just gone, but Jeremy Doku as well. And so like they are fairly well placed for minutes and for competition out there. And Manchester City don't have any problem selling top players for the right money. Think about what happened with Cole Palmer the season before last. So it's a really interesting story, right? And I also hear people's concerns around the minutes, the goal output. Now, if you're making the argument, and I know a lot of people have, that we should be trying to replace the 67 GA that we're losing from Sonny's absence, from Decky and Maddison's injury, and Maddison's obviously out for the season. First of all, don't forget that 67 GA is not 67 goals. There's a lot of those are going to be linked up between each other. And so it's not quite as clear-cut as it sounds. But on top of that, these numbers here, if you just look at Savinho's numbers overall, for example, so he's got 45 GA in 143, so about 1 in every 3 games. But if you actually do the math and divide the amount of minutes that he's played in his career so far professionally, divided by the amount of GA he has, there's actually a goal or an assist every 180 minutes. And so because of his utilization as a substitute, coming on late in games or coming off for other people, it's not quite the same as a per appearance ratio. It's actually fairly good, 1 in every 2, which you could, if he could continue that for Tottenham, and I think he would get a lot of minutes at Tottenham, then you're looking at about 20 GA maybe over the course of the season, potentially in a dream world scenario that's replaced already. So it's not enough, but it's certainly a start. And the only reason I'm bringing that up is I'm sort of taking the data set and cherry picking, I guess, a little bit of it to make the argument that whilst he isn't necessarily a direct goal output merchant, he does actually contribute very nicely. And when he does score, and for what it's worth, his goal creating actions and his shot creating actions, as I said to you yesterday, he might not be the person that gets the ball in the back of the net, and he might not necessarily be the person who passes the ball to the guy who puts it in the back of the net. But that's why on FB Refs, if you are looking at, and I'll show you on the screen right now, if you're looking at his goal creating actions and his shot creating actions, things that are maybe the stages before a goal is scored or a shot or an assist is made, then he's very much in and amongst it. Let me just zoom down here so I can show you. This is the sort of stuff you're looking for, right? Shot creating actions, 5.15. So 5 times a game, he does something that leads to a shot. So it might not necessarily be that he's having the shot or setting the guy up, but he's doing something in that move. Very, very impressive. And in terms of shot creating actions from a take on, 95th percentile. I don't want to hark on all of this stuff again. 86th percentile for things that lead to goals, whether or not he is the goal scorer or the assist maker. It is it's very relevant when people want to cherry pick reasons to not get on board this stuff. This guy, he's doing things that can draw players out. He can play the sacrificial lamb. He can do the sorts of things that we don't have someone doing on the left-hand side or on the right-hand side before this season with Mohamed Kudus. I also mentioned yesterday, guys, that it's an absolutely dream world scenario to have someone like Savinho, if he is going to come and if he's happy to play on the left-hand side, because I do think we have a slight problem where Brennan Johnson, who was our top goal scorer last year, I know most of you are going to say not really that bothered if he sits on the bench. I think you think he was more lucky than good, etc. But if you have someone like him who wants to play on the right, can play on the left, but wants to play on the right. Kudus can play on the left, but wants to play on the right. Savinho, for the most part, last season played off the right. When he was in Spain, he played off the left. I'm not sure whether his preference is to play off the left or play off the right, but if you're looking for someone to do more in the way of output, which is, again, like a reason why I said what I said a second ago, it doesn't necessarily make sense just to judge him on that because of the activity that he does before those things. But if that's what you're looking for, then you probably want to see him playing off the right, because a left footer that is more comfortable on his left, who wants to cut in, think of Ian Robben back in the Munich days, who kind of created that inverted winger, a wing forward sort of role in its infancy, or was at least best known for it at the time. That's how you get those sorts of opportunities. Less so if you're a left footer on the left, because your natural tendency is going to be to get it to the bottom, but get it to the byline and cross it in. But as I say before, if you've got people in the box, if you've got a Richalison who's going to be playing a lot more minutes this year, by all accounts, he doesn't seem to want to leave, who his best asset is in the box, is aerially, and you've got Solanke, who's no mug in the air as well. Hopefully, you've got Polina who can approach into the box late, who's a monster guy. Centre backs that can create as well and sort of cause mischief in there. You absolutely have value to putting him out on the left-hand side. And if you could do that, then you have a guy who's on the left who can take players on and is terrifying. A guy on the right who can take players on and is terrifying. If you then get the next guy in, who we're going to talk about now, who is, of course, Eberechi Eze, to play in the 10, then all of a sudden, Tottenham become an absolutely terrifying prospect, even if you don't replace Richarlison and Solanke as the primary number 9, because having those two guys out wide allows a switcher of play to get the ball out with equal measure, equal confidence, and equal competence. And that is terrifying for the fullbacks. Absolutely terrifying, because they're then going to have that dilemma of, I can't handle this guy by myself. I'm going to call the 6 across, or I'm going to call across my closer centre-back to give me cover. In that scenario, the wing forward could just do their job by creating that mischief, creating that noise and nonsense, and then pass it inside to an Eberechi Eze that will naturally have more space to be able to do what he does, or someone like an Eze, a Maddison or a Udogie could do if they were fit. The same on the other side. If the defenders say, no, it's fine, take me on, bro. Take me on. Take me on. Take me on. Then what happens? Well, then if they can get past, they can get past and whip the ball in, come inside, and obviously create areas of concern where they can get the ball into the box, and then after that happens, anything goes, right? So it can become a bit of a pinball machine. So it's a fascinating sort of insight into the kind of thought process, I think, of where we can go tactically. I've been saying this for a long time. Getting that double threat on the width and having a 10 that can do those sorts of things is what we're looking for. Now, if I just quickly pop back to Fabrizio Romano's statement, then this is where we look with regards to the Eze story this morning. And I'm trying to find where it is. Let me go back here. 1 second. Here we go. Is it on the screen? It's not on the screen. Bear with me, guys. So this is the situation with regards Eberechi Eze. Fabrizio Romano on Eberechi Eze, he's always been on Tottenham's list, so sure, he remains of interest, is a quote. Now, this is obviously a story that's been going on and off and on again. All the other aggregators this morning that aren't talking about Savinho, they are talking about Eze, saying that Arsenal have sort of called their interest. They're not willing to pay the money that Eberechi Eze is apparently commanding by Crystal Palace, and that Tottenham have in fact opened discussions with Parish and hoping that they can find some sort of movement, some sort of middle ground. It would be an astonishing pivot in the energy of the football club to see Tottenham Hotspur going out of their way to have a conversation with Manchester City, of all clubs, who we don't have a great relationship with, to then sit there and put up an offer initially, and then in an initial conversation that made Manchester City set up and take notice. That doesn't usually happen. That's a little bit abnormal. And at the same time, if Tottenham are going into the conversations with Crystal Palace, knowing full well the size of the deal, the structure of the deal, and the sort of the conditions of the deal, if you like, the covenants that are surrounding it, knowing that, are they going to be able to pull off a double bomber and make both chairmen, make both managers happy, give them enough time to find replacements and give them enough juice to be able to make this work? And if you can, everything changes at Tottenham Hotspur. For what it's worth, before I just come back to those two stories, there's also stories out today talking about Harvey Elliott and that Tottenham are now the favourites to sign Harvey Elliott and that they're trying to hijack the deal from RB Leipzig and that Tottenham are leaning towards the £50 million deal that includes no buyback option for Liverpool, which again is a really interesting one. I would imagine, if I'm entirely honest, that it would never be a situation where Harvey Elliott would be coming in to play the more advanced 8, that Eze would be coming in to play the 10, and that eventually could drift out to the left when everyone's fit and there's space and competition, and a Savinho. I think that Harvey Elliott, unlike Morgan Gibbs-White, that could easily play that 8, I think that Harvey Elliott is far more of an attacking midfielder. And so for me, it would probably be one of Harvey Elliott or Eze. Now, we all know 99% of you probably would rather have Eberechi Eze than Harvey Elliott, but about, I suppose, 65-70% of you would be very happy with Harvey Elliott anyway. I'd be happy with both. But as I say, if Tottenham can really push the boat out here, and I guess it depends on what happens with the Man City Savinho story, because if City are going to push for a number that's a little bit bold and a little bit too much relative to his valuation, and remember, City only paid, I think, 25 million or 30 million euros of it, 25 million pounds, something like that, to Troyes, who's part of their own sister football club, part of the City football group, after his successful loan spell with Girona. And he was already valued at 55 million euros straight away. So if they want something like 65, 70 million euros, whatever for it, and Tottenham go and do it, well, are they going to have enough punch left in their energy, in their tank to be able to go and get an Eberechi Eze as well? It would be dream world stuff to see us spend £70 million on one and 60 on the other. That would be 130 million pound on two players. That definitely shows the ambition. It definitely shows the intention to fix the forward line. And then whether or not Tottenham have got enough money left over after all of that to go and get themselves a centre-back, which is clearly still part of the process and the thought processes at Tottenham Hotspur right now, it remains to be seen. We obviously missed out on Coney de Winter, although there's conflicting reports yesterday regarding Coney de Winter. Some people, some big-name journalists are saying that Tottenham did actually bid. It was actually accepted, but de Winter chose AC Milan, and I would have loved Coney de Winter. Others are saying that's a little bit further from the truth than the way that it's been reported. Either way, it's clear from all reports from Ali Gold and everybody else that Tottenham for sure are looking for a centre-back. You can understand why when you look at how we only have 3 fully fit centre-backs at the club at the moment, and 2 of them are well known for their injury concerns. So there is that need as well. How much money do Tottenham have left to spend remains to be seen. If we get this done at the moment, nothing's happening, but it always leaves room for interpretation, because if there's truth that Tottenham are trying to get either Harvey Elliott or Eze, maybe both. I don't think that Harvey Elliott would play in the 8, although maybe you could make the argument that in certain games an Elliott in the 8 with a Polinia behind it would make sense. But then how much room does that leave for a Berghvall, Bentancur, and a Pape Sarr? And don't forget, Bissouma's still part of the squad at the moment with no kind of resolution there. So we're getting to the realms of kind of confusion with regards to the 8 spot. As I say, I think it would be 110 of Harvey Elliott or Eze if something was going to get done. A Savinho off the left, a Kudus off the right, and a Solanke up the top would be absolutely game-changing for me. And it should be for you guys too. The last thing I'll say, guys, is people are saying, well, why would Manchester City sell Savinho? I think it makes kind of sense here that if they can get 60 million pound, whatever, 60 million euros, whatever it will be, 65 million for a Savinho, then they could probably go and speak to Real Madrid and draw Rodrigo from them. Rodrigo doesn't seem to want to leave Real Madrid to come to teams like Tottenham. Teams like Liverpool and teams like Arsenal haven't exactly sort of been banging down the door for him. It's not like it's a bidding war going on, but if Manchester City do want to get someone in to replace Savinho, then they could basically like for like replace with almost like for like money, maybe a little bit more, but get someone that is obviously far more established, far more of a top draw. You could argue on the precipice of world class, and he's going to go to Manchester City before he comes to Tottenham. So once again, you have to kind of shake hands with the pecking order politics, and maybe Tottenham are doing the right thing here. If they realise that there's just no interest from a Rodrigo to come to a Tottenham Hotspur, then maybe that's part of the conversation, right? We'll buy him. You can go and get Rodrigo. It's a like for like. We know where we sit in the pecking order. And I don't think that Manchester City see Tottenham as a threat right now. I think that given what happened last year and given the kind of the obvious escalations of the strength of squads for the top four, I think that most of that top four look at the likes of Tottenham, Newcastle, Villa and United and everybody else below as not really a direct threat. Maybe in individual games, maybe they can be problematic, but for the time being, they've got enough wind in their sails, enough time on their side, and through this, enough money coming in, a quick doubling of their profit on the Savinho deal in 12 months is a great way to sort themselves out for future protection from FFP and PSR issues, future, whatever happens with regards to that 115 charges. You can make an argument where it makes sense very, very easily. And guys, what I was just going to sort of finish off with is also the story around Eberechi Eze, right? So if Eze was to get done, the longer it goes on, the longer you'd make the argument that maybe Palace are not going to do it. I think that Eberechi Eze's release clause expires on Friday. So if it's going to happen, it's probably going to happen this week. If we could get 2 deals done on the back of the PSG result as well, hopefully that will be a great result. But you know what? The squad's been already entered, and so there's no time to change that now. We're looking good for Burnley if we can get a couple of these deals done. I just want to show you this last little thing. Because this is what our team could look like for Burnley if everything goes well. Now, forgive me, it's back to front. I don't know why they do it this way, but Vicario in goal, Pedro Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, Udogie, Bentancur and Polinia in the double eights or in the 6 and 8 pivot, however you want to think of it. Mohamed Kudus, Eze, Savinho, and Dom Solanke. Sorry, that is a match for most teams in the Premier League on their day, or at least they'll give them a good game. There's obviously teams out there with far superior starting 11s. What you've got to do is look at Liverpool's team at the moment. It's absolutely insane. But for me, I think that would equate to having backed Thomas Frank, to having had a crack, and hopefully that also brings us. I think we can all think that if you brought in Polinia, Eze, and Kudus and Savinho, 4 first-team immediate starters, then the 4 players that currently occupy those places will drop down to bench. Obviously, Sonny's left the club, and 1 or 2 of them are injured. But in a full fit squad, you have absolute versatility, absolute depth, absolute strength, and also unique specificity in certain players that can come on in certain situations and utilize their skill sets, like a Pape Sarr late in games with his ability to intercept, interpret, and go again, his fondness of shooting, like a Maddison if he ever comes back and is fully fit, certainly a Decky with the engine. There's unique skill sets amongst our squad, and the first 11, if that's what it looks like come Burnley, then to me, I'm a happy guy. Let me know if you would be too. Guys, I will be back this afternoon at 6 p.m. UK time for a live stream. I'm going to go through all this. I want to talk to you guys about it. And I'll see you also at 8 p.m. on the Spurs 5. I'm not sure if the Football Inc. is going to be back yet, guys. I think it's either today or tomorrow we're going to be bringing back in Football Inc. Johnny's back from his son's wedding. So look forward to that as well. We're back, guys. It's a good week. Let me know your thoughts. Eze, could it be happening? And will it happen this week? What about Savinho? Do you believe yet? Are you a believer? Or are you still thinking that this is Tottenham and we know that nothing's done until it's done? Like, subscribe, and comment, guys, and I'll see you later. Bye.